are reading, and I am literally continuing from where I left off. You will recall the last time I read, we were reading chapter 8 of Alone, Growing Up in Alexandra, and I had started getting into the entrepreneurial phase of my life. And that is going to be the remainder of the reading, including when I read book two, which book two is really mainly about my entrepreneurial journey. But not only that, the landscape of being an entrepreneur in South Africa. And hopefully it will create some form of conversation because it is the space we find ourselves. There are no jobs. The economy is not growing. Entrepreneurship is the thing that everyone talks about. We have AI on the rise that is changing the world so rapidly. So it would be very interesting to read and to see the entrepreneur that I was in the early 2000s and the 2010s to the kind of entrepreneurship that is hopefully needed going forward with the world changing so rapidly. And so I'm just going to read. I'm going to literally start from the last sentence where I left off, and we'll see where I get to. I mean, the part that I'm going to read will also introduce you to me getting into the job market, because I'm not one of those young people that just decided I'll be an entrepreneur. I did do the work thing, although I just never fitted anywhere. And there's parts that will make you laugh. I don't know if I will cover those today. And there'll be parts that will make you sad, because in hindsight, I realized that actually I could have stayed slightly longer at certain companies. I could have gained to learn a little bit more. Some of the things could have probably seen me fare slightly better as an entrepreneur had I stayed. You know, there's always good and bad. It's not all bad. You know, working for someone is not always bad, and being an entrepreneur is not always bad as well. There's always the give and take. There's always something to be learned and something. So there's some missed opportunities there that I am looking, that in hindsight, I can see that, oh, okay, maybe here I could have stayed. And I'll let you know when we get to them. So let us just read, and I'm gonna put on the glasses. So I'm going to start with the sentence that I left when I stopped reading the last, I think last week. I was not a very talented singer, so that part of my life died a natural death. I did discover, however, that I was more of an entrepreneur. Our family moved from number 11 9th Avenue in Alexandra, East Bank, which was regarded as a posh side of Alexandra because the houses were new and had bathrooms inside. Alex in the late 80s had very few shacks, no rats, and was not as overcrowded a township as it is today. The community was small and close-knit. And these are the things I shared in earlier chapters, you know, when I was reflecting in earlier chapters. So things that I've shared and reflected on, I'll just read swiftly because you've caught up with, you know, who this label is, right? The community was small and close-knit. We had two main community youth centers, Tusong and Tabisong. The former being where I went with the other trendy young cool kids. At Tusong, we could do karate, ballet, singing, drama, traditional dance, cooking, pottery, poetry. I, of course, did all of them. I mean, I think I referred to this in one of the videos that I literally would do everything. And I tried everything. And I did do karate, and I did get to the yellow belt. The orange belt. I got to the orange belt. So don't try me. Don't try me. East Bank, our new home, was bare and empty. It did not have the soul that Alexandra had. I mean, think about it. Think of a new development where new houses are being built or new townhouses, and the first residents are moving in there. It is, I mean, it still smells of pen there. There's still some rubble, there's still some piles of sand, there's still some contractors working, there's still others who are still fixing other houses. So you can just imagine that type of environment. And we were one of the first families to move there at East Bank. But for people who are from Alex, I mean West Bank. And only people in Alex know what I mean. It was East Bank in terms of geography. Geographically, it is East Bank because the it is on the eastern side of the riverbank. You know, has a big Jokske River crossing, passing across it. So the main Alex is on the western side of the riverbank, and East Bank, the new houses, the eastern side of the riverbank. So that it is East Bank. However, there is one side that is posher And then there's the other side that is kind of posh, which is where we come from. So where I come from, they call it West Bank in Alex, but it is East Bank. It's just one of those technicalities. Okay. So we had just moved and we were new residents. We were all new there and not yet established a rhythm or a culture. There was no shops, no hair salons. We would always go back to Alexandra for those services. The Pam, the hairstyle. Pam was still in style in the late 80s and early 90s. So I decided to open my hair salon to fill in that gap because a lot of people needed to Pam. So why Pam and why at 12, 13, 14 did I know how to Pam people? So back to Alex, back in my growing up days, there was a lady who used to have a saloon. I mean, that woman, Ausnomini, she, for me, was just otherworldly. She came from Swaziland and she started a hair salon back in Alex Go 9. And for whatever reason, she took a liking in me and she would always call me to help her with the hair. Back in the days when you perm someone's hair, there would be this piece of paper that you roll the hair with and then you roll with a curl. So I was that girl this child was dedicated to giving this little piece of paper and then give the curl, and I would watch and see. So now there I am. I live in East Bank. There are no salons. I think I know what I'm doing. All you need is step one, some shampoo and buy curls. I got my mom to buy me curls, and I just said to people if they want to do their hair, they can come to me, and it literally started like that. I was good with my hands, and at 14, I had regular clients. I made good money. And I mean, by good money, what do I mean? I mean, like I'd make 200 rands a month or 300 rands because, to perm someone's hair would be 30 randa, 50 randa. And every weekend, someone would come, one or two people would come to do the hair. So by the time I was 16, it was a fully fledged hair salon. The youth club that I had started was also going well. The idea was to showcase the club's talents of singing, dancing, or acting in the hopes that would be one day featured on television. Shows like Diwetsi, Mukibelo ka Mukibelo, I was just hoping. So I've always sort of wanted some form of limelight, some form of recognition, to be seen, to be in the spotlight. It's always just been something that I craved. That yearning to, here's what I'm offering, here's what I can give, here's what I have, here's my light. It's always, always been with me. And I think it's what has propelled me to do the things that I've done thus far. Yeah, so I've just always wanted that. For better or worse, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But it's just something that I've always felt like I need to be seen, I need to be heard, some form of recognition. And I don't think I'm alone. Look at YouTube. It's full of people who say, see me, witness to me, hear me. I think it's a deep, deep human and essential need. So if you have it, don't worry. You're not seeking attention. I think it is a natural way that humans want to offer something. Okay, shall we continue? Let's continue. At 18, I entered the job market. Of all the problems I've had in my life, finding a job was not one of them. It was effortless, and so I job hopped. If I stayed longer than 2 years at one company, that was a huge achievement, much to my mother's delight. My mom would be so happy if I finish a year somewhere, which was very rare. My average length of tenure was 9 months, and the shortest was one day at a marketing and public relations firm. On my first day at that firm, I decided I did not like the offices, so the next day I did not go back. And this is what I'm talking about. And this is the thing of being young and not being emotionally mature and just being quite impulsive, to be quite honest with you. I will never forget that firm. It was in downtown. And I, I I just remember walking in and it did not represent what a marketing and public relations firm would be like. I just did not like that they moved. So I was obviously interviewed by the recruitment agencies. I think it was PAG back then. I don't know. It could have been Kelly. It must have been Kelly Gill. And then I went for the company interview, which was in the premises in Parktown. And then when the job started, and they did tell me that, we will be moving offices. And then when the job started, they had moved in downtown in Braamfontein. I just didn't like where they were. I didn't like the offices. I just simply never went back. And that shows emotional immaturity, being a child. You'll recall that my job hopping and my job being in a job was all in my early 20s. I started working at 18. And so I'm quite honestly a child, at the time. So you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're missing. You're missing up opportunities. You don't have any mentor to speak of. You're just on this path and making a lot of mistakes along the way. So, that I want to just quickly own up. And I'm owning it up because we often complain about I'm a 2000 and the Gen Zs, and maybe to a certain extent the millennials, that they don't focus, they don't want to work, they're lazy, they this, that. I think some of us had that as well. If we can all own up to the first time we entered jobs, or maybe it was me, I don't know. You tell me on the comments if you were somehow like me. How were you when you entered the workspace? Did you not want things your way? Did you not feel bored? Did you know? Because I would get so incredibly bored and I would want to leave. I didn't understand why must you be there until 5. I just did not like the corporate space. Let me finish this chapter, this passage, and then we see where I end up. Okay. So I just wanted to reflect on that specific company. I did not stay long enough in any company to learn about my flaws, a mistake I later paid dearly for. You see, that's what I mean. Okay. Let's just continue. I did not stay long enough in any company to learn about my flaws, a mistake I later paid dearly for. I always itched for more and better. I thought the grass was obviously greener on the other side. I would resign at the slightest provocation. I would resign at the slightest provocation. I would resign because the company was just too far. I would have to take 3 taxis to get to work. So for that, I would resign for. I would resign if it's not corporate enough, it's not posh enough, in other words. I would resign because it is too corporate. I would resign because there's too many white people. I would resign because there's too many black people. I would resign because the aircon is too cold. My recruitment agent once advised me to temp, to take on short assignments. She told me it was a new trend taking the US by storm. We are talking what? We're talking very late 90s to early 2000s. So yeah, your 98, 99, yeah, those late 90s and early 2000s. So I took her up on it because it sounded like such a relief. So I probably had a problem with the permanentness of a permanent job, I suppose. So when she told me this, I remember it just lit me up, and I'm like, yeah, actually, maybe I can register. It was Kelly Girl, because then they registered me under the temps. So when she told me that, the temping world, or the whole thing of people just temping and not taking permanent jobs, I remember just feeling such a great relief. It made a lot of sense to me. Once again, just signs, little dots that connects to a deep need for independence. Yes, it might seem like I was just making weird mistakes and just not staying long enough in companies, but perhaps what my heart and my soul needed was the independence and the freedom to just be. The whole thing of a permanent job just never set well in my soul. I always say that I have a very, very bully inner self. My inner self just does not allow me to do things that it doesn't want. And in hindsight, I'm thinking, yeah, it was a soul thing. My soul did not want to be confined, probably in an environment that is a permanent job. So I took the offer, and I registered with them as a permanent temp. It was Kelly Girl. Now I remember Kelly Girl, and Kelly Girl was linked to their academy, their training academy, Kelly Green Oaks, where we would be trained for reception work, secretarial work, clerical work, executive PA, the executive PA, because you'd be replacing. As a temp, you could easily temp as an executive PA to an MD or a general manager. You could be senior. And I got to those levels where I would temp at a senior position, which is why later, after the fall of my business, when, you'll recall when I started reading, I took a job as a PA to a chief director in at social development. It's because I had those credentials. I know how to be a PA, but you just have to be very senior for me to be your PA or your executive assistant. I temped for a few months. It feels like I temped longer though. But anyway, that's what I wrote. I temped for a few months. The companies would always want me to stay on permanently because I was a hard worker and a fast learner, which is true. I was very lucky that I was employable and likable. I would seldom attend an interview and not get a job offer. Often I had two, sometimes three offers to choose from, in the temping. I mean, temping, I don't know if people still do it now because it was a thing, you temp because someone's on maternity leave, you temp because they're on leave, you temp because they got ill. You temp, you just a plug, you're just filling in and then you're moving on. You'll fill it in for 3 weeks and then you move on. And I was so busy. I'd always have the next temp after the next, after the next. I wouldn't stay home long. And then if I do stay home, it would be that week where I'm just feeling like, I'm just having my time. And that worked for me. That suited me so much better. But, all good things come to an end. At some point, I had to take a permanent job. And that led me into the office furniture world, which led me into starting my own business. And we'll get there as we continue. Let me see how far this paragraph goes, and then I can conclude this episode. But I feel like also the moving and changing jobs and wanting to temp was just my restless nature and my need to find a place where I belong, and perhaps also those demons of not really feeling like I belong anyway. Maybe to conclude, I can just conclude with this little sentence here. I kept moving and changing jobs, and I preferred to temp, perhaps to fill the void, the deep, hollow feeling inside, the feeling of not belonging, the vague feelings and of shame and not feeling good enough. So yeah, perhaps that was at the deeper, that was what's at play at a deep, deep level. So next time I will continue. I'll start with the entrepreneur me because soon after that I then got that job in an office furniture firm and a whole lot of things changed and I took on an entrepreneurial route, which I have been on ever since. Ups and downs, and one of the most deep, deep learning curves that has gotten me to be here doing this YouTube channel with you today. And so this is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours.